What a week it's been for gaming. Not only do we get the long-awaited Oblivion Remaster basically shadow dropped as it was announced, but this Expedition 33 game also kind of feels like it came out of nowhere as a possible contender for Game of the Year 2025. In just 1 week, Xbox has fully earned my Game Pass subscription for the next year, and now the biggest problem I have is figuring out how I'll have enough time to no-life both of these games as much as I want while still maintaining my 9 to 5. After years of rumors and speculation, we've finally got our Oblivion Remaster, and it is fantastic. I'll admit I started having doubts, especially regarding the rumors of an April release date. My money would have been on a June release, but none of that matters anymore. The remaster is here, and it's even better than I expected. Amazing graphics and quality of life improvements aside, they somehow managed to retain the spirit and feel of that classic Oblivion vibe. I thought a remaster would either try too hard to change things and cater to a more modern audience, or it would be an exact copy of the 2006 game with a fresh coat of paint on it, which would be fine, but it looks like Virtuos really took the time and care to fix some of the pain points, especially with things like leveling and some minor combat tweaks in order to improve the game without fundamentally changing it. Here's a quick rundown of the biggest differences from the original to the remaster. The user interface has definitely been modernized while maintaining the look and feel of the original. They clearly did a good job of this because I didn't notice much of a difference until I actually looked back at the original Oblivion's UI. The one thing I did see people complaining about though was that they removed the local map tab, but in reality they just merged it with the world map. To see your local map, you just have to zoom in. I think that's how it worked in Skyrim if I'm not mistaken. Another change they made was in the leveling system to make it work a bit more smoothly. You still have to find a bed and sleep to actually level up, but instead of leveling your attributes up based on how many skill points you gained that level, you get a set number of virtue points that can be used on up to 3 attributes each time you level up. This means that your points aren't going to be limited by the major skills of your class. It sounds kind of complicated when I'm explaining it here, but trust me when I say it feels really seamless in the game, and this change makes it so that you're not at risk of having the world outscale your character's effectiveness, if that makes sense. They also improved on a few things related to combat and movement, like I'm pretty sure you couldn't sprint in the original, and the remaster has improved combat animations as well. Combat does still feel much like the original, just less janky if that makes sense. I haven't played around with archery much, but I've heard it's been significantly improved, which means I'm already planning my next playthrough to be a stealth archer. That does it for the biggest changes, I think, but I also wanted to shout out some of the smaller details that they didn't need to add, but it just goes a long way to show why this remaster feels like a labor of love. They added lore-friendly origins to the character creator that give a little extra bonus depending on what you pick, and they expanded on the voice lines of non-unique NPCs. I was worried this meant we'd no longer get classics like "Thank you, kind sir" from the beggars or overly aggressive city guards, but thankfully those remain intact. They just added more variety so we're not hearing the exact same audio recording from 20 different NPCs. So far, I've only had the chance to play maybe about 10 hours of Oblivion this week, but I'm just totally falling in love with this game all over again. This might be the nostalgia talking, but I actually think Oblivion is, from a story perspective, far superior to Skyrim. Actually, in more ways than just the story. I think Oblivion has better guild quests, the cities feel more like cities, there's more things to do like the arena quest line, Oblivion has spellcrafting, more memorable random side quests, the DLCs are better. Look, I'm not hating on Skyrim, I've spent hundreds of hours at least playing it, I just think Oblivion is that good. In my opinion, the biggest thing holding it back from the recognition it deserved was pretty much the very dated graphics. I'm predicting that this remaster will introduce a whole new generation of Elder Scrolls fans to Oblivion, and I think my opinion will be proven correct, but I guess only time will tell. Now, let's talk about Clair Obscur Expedition 33. The only reason I had even heard about this game before this week is because it was featured in the 2025 Xbox Developers Direct presentation earlier this year, which ironically I only watched for possible news on the Oblivion Remaster. When I first saw the trailers, I thought the game had an interesting look to it, but it's a turn-based combat game and it just didn't seem like it would be my cup of tea, so to speak. I might miss you guys with this analogy, but for me, it had the vibes of a game I'd read about in like my Nintendo Power magazine back in the early 2000s that looked really cool and I'd get really into it, but by the time the game came out, I've moved on to other things, so I never end up even playing it. Anyway, that was my first impression of this Expedition 33 game, so why did I end up trying it out? Well, towards the end of this week, I started seeing all the hype it was getting, and then one of my friends, who is a diehard, hardcore Elder Scrolls fan, messaged me saying I should give it a try since I have Game Pass. He said it had such a great hook at the beginning that he actually put Oblivion on the back burner until he finishes Expedition 33. I downloaded it after work on Friday and played it for about 2 hours, and I totally understand why so many people are all in on this game. I can't quite put my finger on why it's so good yet, but the characters seem interesting right from the start. They're living in a mysterious, post-apocalyptic, dark fantasy world with steampunk undertones, and I just want to keep playing to learn more about what's going on. The basic premise for this game is that they live on an isolated island called Lumiere, and every year this entity called the Paintress paints an ever-decreasing number on this structure, and when that happens, everyone whose age is above that number disappears. In order to try to stop the eventual extinction of humanity, every year the people of the island send out an expedition to slay the Paintress. That's where this game's title comes from. You begin the game as part of the 33rd expedition. I'm not very far in the game like I said, but it definitely has me hooked. I'm even finding the turn-based combat to be more fun than I thought because there are some action-based elements like parrying or dodging enemy attacks and generating combos during your attacks. It's actually pretty fun. When I started seeing some of the initial reviews, I thought this game has to be an industry plant. There's no way this game could be that good. But after giving it just a couple hours, I can recognize that this game is unique and the hype is deserved. Also, it was interesting to find out that apparently this whole game was made by a small team of like 30 people. It's not some 7th sequel slop that's being pushed out by the gaming industry. You can tell that this was put together by a team of passionate developers who were just focused on making a great game. Hopefully this will be a wake-up call to larger game studios to take a less hands-on approach when it comes to game development. This is all my speculation and opinion, of course, but I think it's telling that the two biggest and most promising releases in 2025 were $50 labors of love instead of the generic $80 unfinished forgettable games we've come to expect. And that's all I've got for this video. Go out and play one or both of these games if you have the chance. I promise you won't regret it. Please share your thoughts in the comments and give the video a like if you liked it. Subscribe for more, and until next time, see ya.
Find him and close shut the jaws of Oblivion.